Welcome back to Rewire to Restore. If you were here last week, or if you listened to weeks 1 or 2 of the video series, you may have heard me say something that I want you to sit with for just a moment before we go forward. Chronic caregiving physically reshapes the nervous system. It is not a mindset problem. It is a physiological one. This week, we go one layer deeper into a connection that many practitioners may not talk about, that hormone protocols may not address, and that I believe is one of the hidden reasons so many women feel like they're doing everything right and still not feeling like they're getting better. Your hormones and your nervous system are not separate systems. They are running the same loop. And when one crashes, the others follow. Today, we are going to understand and learn to understand that loop, how it forms, what breaks it, and why healing requires working both sides at once. This is the bridge between everything I talked about in my first series and the deep work we are doing here. Let's begin. Today we cover 5 essential things. First, the conversation your hormones and nervous system are having right now, even as we speak, or I speak and you listen, whether you are aware of it or not. Second, the HPA axis, your body's central command center, and what happens when it goes offline. Third, how perimenopause doesn't just change your hormones, it accelerates nervous system instability in ways that are still being underestimated in mainstream medicine. Fourth, why hormone protocols fail without nervous system support. This one is critical for many of you. And fifth, how 2 of our 4 patterns, the hormonal hurricane and the constitutional mismatch, live inside this dynamic and what that means for how you heal. Here is what most people were taught. Your nervous system manages stress, and your hormones manage reproduction, metabolism, and mood. 2 separate departments, 2 separate conversations. That model is incomplete, and it is costing women their health. The truth is that your hormones and your nervous systems are in constant bidirectional communication. They speak the same chemical language. They use the same receptors. They respond to the same threats. Cortisol, your primary stress hormone, is made in the adrenal glands, which take direct orders from the brain. Estrogen and progesterone have receptors throughout the central nervous system, including in the amygdala, the hypothalamus, the prefrontal cortex, and the vagus nerve. Thyroid hormones regulate the speed at which neurons fire, and progesterone, in particular, converts in the brain into a neurosteroid called allopregnanolone, which calms the nervous system the way a gentle sedative would. So when progesterone drops, as it does in perimenopause, the nervous system loses one of its most important calming signals, not because you are more anxious, because you are chemically less buffered. This is not weakness. This is biology, and it deserves a biological response. In traditional Chinese medicine, this connection has been understood for millennia through the kidney-heart axis. The kidneys, as the root of all yin energy and jing, our deep life essence, must be in clear communication with the heart, which governs Shen, the spirit and mental clarity. When kidney essence depletes, as it does in the menopausal transition, the heart becomes unsettled. In TCM terms, the root and the flower lose their connection. In modern terms, the hormone and nervous system, the loop there breaks down. In Ayurveda, prana, the life force that governs the nervous system, and tejas, the transformative fire that governs hormonal metabolism, are understood as partners. When tejas burns too hot or too erratically through chronic stress and overgiving, it consumes prana. And when prana is depleted, tejas becomes unstable. The ancient Ayurvedic text described this as a vata-pitta disturbance, erratic energy on top of inflammatory fire. Sound familiar? Let's talk about the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. I know that is a mouthful, so let's just think of it as your body's central command center for stress response. Here is how it works. Your hypothalamus, a tiny region in the brain, perceives a threat, real or imagined, physical or emotional. It sends a signal to the pituitary gland, which sends a signal to the adrenal glands, which release cortisol. Cortisol mobilizes energy, sharpens focus, suppresses inflammation, and prepares you to respond. When the threat is over, cortisol comes back down. Your body returns to baseline. This is a healthy, functional stress response. But here is what happens with chronic stress, and especially with the kind of prolonged, relentless giving that many of the women watching this have been doing for decades. The HPA axis never gets the all clear signal. The threat never resolves. The cortisol keeps coming. And over time, the system begins to dysregulate. In early stage dysregulation, cortisol is high, especially at night, which disrupts sleep, depletes progesterone, and keeps the nervous system in low-level threat in that mode around the clock. In later stage dysregulation, the adrenals cannot keep up. Cortisol output begins to flatten. The morning cortisol awakening response, which should give you that natural energy lift, becomes blunted. You wake up exhausted. You cannot get going without caffeine. You feel like your battery is broken. It is not broken. It is depleted. And here is the crucial piece that many hormone protocols miss. When the HPA axis is dysregulated, it pulls resources from the HPG axis, the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, which governs sex hormones. In a survival state, the body does not prioritize reproduction. It prioritizes survival. Progesterone gets converted to cortisol. Estrogen metabolism becomes erratic. Thyroid signaling slows down. This is what we call the hormone cascade. Not one hormone in trouble, all of them, downstream from a nervous system that is running on emergency power. From a nutritional endocrinology lens, HPA dysregulation dramatically increases the body's demand for specific nutrients. Vitamin C, pantothenic acid, which is also called vitamin B5, magnesium, and zinc, all essential for cortisol synthesis and recovery. When these are depleted, the cycle deepens. We often cannot supplement our way out of this without first supporting the nervous system itself. Now let's talk about perimenopause, the transition that in our culture is wildly underestimated, often dismissed, and almost never addressed from a nervous system perspective. Perimenopause typically begins in the early to mid 40s, sometimes earlier. And while it is framed as a reproductive shift, your ovaries producing less estrogen and progesterone, what actually happens to many women is a sudden and alarming destabilization of their entire nervous system. Here is why. Estrogen has been modulating your serotonin, dopamine, and GABA receptors for your entire reproductive life. It has been keeping your stress response calibrated, your sleep architecture intact, your emotional resilience steady. When estrogen becomes erratic in perimenopause, not just low, but wildly fluctuating, the nervous system loses a critical stabilizing force. At the same time, progesterone, the hormone that converts to the calming neurosteroid allopregnanolone, begins to decline. So the GABA receptors in your brain receive less of their primary calming signal. Anxiety rises, sleep deteriorates. The freeze or flood response becomes more accessible. And the HPA axis, already dysregulated from years of stress and overgiving, now has even less hormonal buffering to work with. This is not a coincidence. This is a convergence. And for women who already carry chronic dysregulation into perimenopause, it can feel like the bottom drops out. You are not falling apart. You are in the most physiologically complex transition of your adult life, with a nervous system that was already running on fumes. Medical astrology offers an interesting lens here. The Saturn return and the Pluto opposition, both of which occur around the midlife years for many women, are astrological markers of deep structural change. Saturn asks you to reckon with what you have built and what it has cost you. Pluto demands transformation at the deepest level, breaking down what no longer serves so that something more authentic can emerge. Many of the women I work with describe perimenopause as feeling like a demolition. Ancient wisdom says, yes, this is the intended deconstruction, but you need support for it. Let me say something that may be controversial in some circles. but that over 15 years of working with women has made undeniable to me. Hormonal protocols taken in isolation are incomplete medicine. Bioidentical progesterone, estrogen therapy, thyroid support, adrenal supplementation, these can all be valuable, carefully chosen tools. But if the nervous system is still running in chronic threat mode, those hormones cannot do their jobs. Here is why. Hormone receptors require a regulated nervous system to respond appropriately. When your body is in a dysregulated state, when the HPA axis is still firing on high alert, cellular receptor sensitivity changes. Hormones may be present in the bloodstream, but the cells cannot hear them properly. The signal is there. The receiver is disrupted. This is one of the primary reasons women come to me having been on hormone protocols for months or years, still feeling exhausted, still symptomatic, still not themselves. It is not that the hormones are wrong. It is that the ground they are being planted in is not ready to receive them. Think of it this way. If the soil is depleted and toxic, the most nutritious seeds in the world will not grow. The nervous system is the soil. The hormones are the seeds. Until we tend the soil, the seeds cannot take root. From an Ayurvedic perspective, this is the principle of Agni, the digestive and metabolic fire. When Vata is in excess, when the nervous system is erratic and unsettled, Agni becomes disturbed. Supplementing without stabilizing Vata first is, in traditional Ayurvedic terms, like pouring ghee onto an unsteady flame. It may flare, sputter, and go out rather than burn steadily. The sequence matters. Nervous system first, then hormonal restoration, then cellular optimization. This is the order this program is designed around. Now let's bring this into the personal. Let's talk about two of the four patterns that live most directly inside this dynamic. The first is the hormonal hurricane. If you are a hormonal hurricane, your experience of this loop is intense. Your nervous system does not just dysregulate quietly, it floods. You experience hormonal surges, hot flashes that feel like your whole body is on fire. Nights when you lie awake feeling wired and desperate for sleep. And days where you crash so hard you can barely move. The hormonal hurricane is what happens when the HPA axis and the HPG axis are destabilized simultaneously, and the body loses its capacity to regulate the fluctuations between them. Cortisol spikes disrupt progesterone. Estrogen oscillates wildly. Thyroid slows down to protect itself from the chaos. And the nervous system, which was already handling too much, is now processing hormonal signals that are completely inconsistent. For hormonal hurricanes, the most important intervention is not more hormones. It is stabilization first. Consistent sleep rhythms, blood sugar regulation, magnesium and B5 for adrenal support, nervous system practices that create the experience of safety in the body. In TCM terms, the hormonal hurricane often reflects liver qi stagnation combined with heart fire rising, a buildup of constrained energy that erupts as heat, agitation, and emotional overwhelm. The liver governs smooth hormonal flow. When it is stagnant, everything becomes erratic. The therapeutic principle here is to move and cool, to restore smooth flow before attempting to tonify. In medical astrology, strong Mars or Aries energy or a heavily activated 8th house often appears in the charts of those who carry this pattern. The fire wants to transform, but it needs a channel. The second pattern living in this dynamic is the constitutional mismatch. Where the hormonal hurricane floods, the constitutional mismatch freezes. If you are a constitutional mismatch, you may have tried numerous approaches to hormonal support and found that you respond poorly, unpredictably, or not at all to things that help other people. Progesterone cream makes you more anxious. Thyroid medication makes you feel worse. Adaptogens that others rave about leave you feeling off. This is not random. Your constitutional type, whether we understand it through the Ayurvedic doshas, TCM organ patterns, or your astrological chart, determines how your body processes and responds to therapeutic inputs. What calms kapha dysregulates vata. What supports one constitutional type overwhelms another. Constitutional mismatches also tend to carry deep, often long-standing nervous system dysregulation that has shaped the terrain of their hormonal function at a foundational level. The loop here is not just about hormones and stress. It is about a deeper mismatch between the body's constitution and the environment, physical, emotional, relational, energetic, all part of your environment. And the body's constitution and these pieces of your environment, this is what you've been trying to survive in. For constitutional mismatches, healing requires individualization above all else. This is where working with your specific pattern, your specific constitution, and your specific life history becomes non-negotiable. In Ayurveda, the concept of prakriti, your original nature, versus vikriti, your current state of imbalance, is the foundation of all effective treatment. Constitutional mismatches are often women whose vikriti has drifted so far from their prakriti over years of adaptation and over accommodation that they no longer recognize what their natural state even feels like. Healing for them is as much an act of remembering as it is of restoration. So, how do we break this loop? Let me give you a clear framework to carry with. Step 1 is stabilization. Before anything else, the nervous system needs experiences of safety. This does not mean eliminating all stress. That is not realistic. It means creating enough consistent moments of regulation that the HPA axis gets the message that the threat is not permanent. Breath work, specific movement practices, consistent sleep-wake timing, and reducing neurological stimulation where possible. These are the foundations. Step 2 is nourishment at the cellular level. HPA axis recovery requires targeted nutritional support. And this is where nutritional endocrinology becomes essential. Vitamin C and B5 for adrenal recovery, magnesium glycinate for nervous system calming and sleep, zinc and selenium for thyroid function, glycine for GABA receptor support, food first where possible, and targeted supplementation where needed. Step 3 is hormonal support that follows, not precedes, steps 1 and 2. When the nervous system begins to regulate, hormone receptors become more responsive. Often, the amount of hormonal intervention needed is significantly less than what was attempted before nervous system work was done. Step 4 is individualization. And this is where your pattern, your constitution, and your life history shapes everything. There is no universal protocol. There is your protocol. This is exactly the work we do together in the Life Force Reclamation Program. And I will talk about that in just a moment. If what you heard today resonates, if you recognize yourself in this loop, in these patterns, in this place where hormones and nervous system have been fighting each other instead of supporting each other, then I want to tell you about the Life Force Reclamation Program. This is where we go deep. This is where I work with you on your specific pattern, your hormonal hurricane or constitutional mismatch or somatic store or transitional transformer. And we build a protocol that is designed for your body, your constitution, your history, and your life. We do not treat symptoms in isolation. We restore the terrain. Nervous system first, then hormonal recalibration, then cellular optimization, in the right order, with the right support. If you are ready to stop cycling through approaches that treat one piece of the puzzle while ignoring the rest, this is the place. The link is in the description. I would love to see you there. Before I let you go, I want to leave you with this. What you are experiencing is not random. It is not weakness. It is not age catching up with you. It is a loop that formed because your body did exactly what it was designed to do under the conditions it was given. And because it formed, it can be unwound. Next week, we go somewhere many practitioners may not take you, into your natal chart as a nervous system map. Medical astrology reveals that you were born with a specific constitutional nervous system blueprint, and understanding it changes everything about how you approach healing. We'll look at what your chart tells you about your stress patterns, your depletion tendencies, and why you are wired the way you are, not as a flaw, but as a design. Until then, please be gentle with yourself. You are not broken. You are mid-restoration. I will see you next week.